About 70 years ago, in 1867, Secretary of State William H. Seward bought Alaska from Russia for $7,200,000. When the purchase was announced, thousands of citizens throughout the United States protested, called it a waste of public money, and Alaska became known as Seward's Folly. But let us see if these citizens were right or wrong in their conclusions. Today, there is no man better qualified to give you a true picture of Alaska than Father Bernard Hubbard, known as the Glacier Priest, a Jesuit explorer who has spent over 10 years in our great Northern Territory.
10 years ago, when I first began with my loyal young college men and faithful dogs, annual trips of scientific exploration to the north, I thought that Alaska was just a worthless knob of land on top of America, where Eskimos lived in igloos amid desolations of snow and ice. I was certainly surprised to find that it was anything but this. Popular notions of Alaska are for the most part all wrong. It is the least understood of any United States territory. Its size, its extent, and its great variety are by no means comprehended. It is truly the land that nobody knows. The best way to get an idea of the true size of Alaska is to move it down onto the United States. Although only 1/5 as large as the United States in square miles, nevertheless Alaska touches all 4 borders of our country. This will give you an idea of the wide expanse and spread of our great Northern Territory. The most important fact to bear in mind is this. Alaska is roughly divided into 3 distinct sections, which are as different from one another as day is from night. The section being enclosed now by the moving line is the Yukon area, taking its name from the great Yukon River which flows through it. A line of latitude drawn eastward from the center of this section will touch eventually on the southern coast of Greenland. We are not surprised then to see here in this Yukon section what so many people imagine all of Alaska to be. Wastes of snow and ice traversed only by dog teams in a sub-zero temperature that is always a menace to life. The most grueling experience I ever had in Alaska was mushing a dog team 1,600 miles over the frozen Yukon. The wolf dog called Malamute or Husky is man's most faithful companion in conquering the long distances where a very scattered population does not yet encourage a more modern form of transportation. Here is my team on the winter trail, where the noble sled dog takes pride in his work. At home in his kennels, he is equally ready and anxious to be of service. This is Katmai, my heroic old leader. He saved my life more than once. From this exceptionally fine group of dogs, I picked the ones that I still use in my Alaskan adventures. Some of my Eskimo friends are showing you where they live. Not in ice houses, but in dugouts or even pretentious log cabins. They are educated and quite artistic. Beautifully patterned fur garments shield them from the winter cold. The reason Eskimos stay in this severe climate when a short migration would take them to more attractive spots is on account of the abundance of food here. For old Mary of Unalakleet, a hole in the ice, a hook, and a short length of line means a bountiful supper of tomcod. For flesh meat, they have teeming herds of reindeer imported from Siberia years ago by the United States government. Finding in their new home on the Bering Sea an abundance of food under the winter snows, they have increased to the tens of thousands. This was the first herd of reindeer I ever saw. What impressed me the most was not the reindeer themselves, but the sea of moving horns. In this region, nature stages her most dramatic spectacles, and here is the most awesome. When the Yukon is frozen, it is the winter highway. When it breaks up, it is a death trap. Just the day before this breakup, I mushed my dog team over these same ice blocks, now piling up in chaos. Let's go southward now to the second distinct section known as southeastern Alaska. Very few realize how far south southeastern Alaska really is. A line drawn from the center of this section directly eastward will touch the British Isles, which are in exactly the same latitude. It may surprise you to know that Juneau, the capital city of Alaska, located here in this section, is not a remote northern settlement, but in reality lies on almost the same latitude as the great city of London and is just as easy to get to. In climate as well as general appearance, southeastern Alaska is like our own New England states, such as Maine, New Hampshire, or Vermont. It may seem hard to believe, but nevertheless true, that Washington, D.C., the capital of our country, gets colder in winter than does Juneau, the capital of Alaska. What stole my heart for Alaska was the first sight of its main approach by water, a beautiful sheltered stretch called the Inside Passage. In the last ice age, the same channels along which vessels moved so peacefully were mighty glaciers. When milder climates came, the ice melted away. Ocean water flowed into the carved-out fjords, and now myriads of islands, some large, others small, but all beautiful, please the eye of the beholders, clothed as they are in graceful trees. Along the Inside Passage are Alaska's first cities. This is Juneau, the capital city, with about 6,000 inhabitants, and the chief source of employment is one of the world's greatest engineering projects, the famous Alaska-Juneau Gold Mine. Dense forests and smiling meadows make this region a veritable promised land. Fine government roads wind through these woods and meadows, and it almost startles a stranger motoring along to suddenly find himself in a wonderful dairying country, dotted with modern farm buildings and cattle as fine-looking as any similar scene in New England or in the beautiful Swiss or Tyrolese Alps. When I first saw this scene, if I wasn't sure I was in Alaska, I would have thought that I was back in Tyrol, where I spent so many happy years. Hundreds of waterfalls come down through the lanes of green in a virgin forest. The natural beauty of this part of Alaska equals anything of scenic grandeur in the whole world. I am called the Glacier Priest on account of my years of research in the glaciers of Europe and North America. Nestled in the mighty mountains of southeastern Alaska are glaciers that make the largest ones in Europe look small. Alaskan glaciers like this one move slowly towards the sea. When they reach the sea, the tremendous pressure exerted by millions of tons of ice from the back causes them to crack and break with the noise of thunder, and crashing walls of glacier ice float away as icebergs to melt and disappear in the deep fjords where they are born. Most people think that all icebergs form this way, but to our surprise we found that the biggest ones pop up suddenly from below the surface. Here comes one from 1,000 feet below. It takes years of patience and waiting to get such spectacular pictures. Here is one I waited 8 years to get. This is just another of the surprising paradoxes of Alaska. To find these huge glaciers in the gentle southeastern section when one would expect to find them farther north. Leaving southeastern Alaska, I will now take you to the section being enclosed by the moving line. The line has enclosed what are known the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutian Islands, the most spectacular area of all. A festoon of fire, dotted with dozens of giant active volcanoes, a long finger-like sweep of ash-covered desolation and endless tundra. I call this my own Alaska, for here were spent many years of exciting adventure. The mysterious Aleutians are the cradle of the storms.